In early 1999, three prophets met in a Northern Virginia nightclub. They quickly unified their vision and epiphanized their message in sound. They now offer you salvation through vibe and groove.
Babylon is the perfect introductory song for us. And besides, Gunsong is about as serious as we get. So we wanted to release horror first.
And besides, that's the one where Lucida totally sexes up the screen.
Yeah. Particularly live. You know what the hell she's going to do during the horror.
She's going to take.
Sayings.
Lucida Vale was born Maria Lucille Valero in 1974 in San Francisco, California. Her father was career Army and her mother was a housewife who raised her and her two brothers.
I was a military kid, so we moved around for most of my life. I mean, we were all over the country.
Maria changed schools regularly and lived in Corpus Christi, Texas, Panama City, Florida, and Bangor, Maine, all before the age of 16.
We finally stopped in Fairfax, Virginia long enough for me to graduate from high school. I started community college, but it just seemed like a big fat waste of my time. I was working in this fetish shop and I had designed their website and online catalog.
She was gifted with all forms of technology to include computers from a very early age.
I had grown up with computers, so I knew I had the knack for it. I was doing pretty well, actually, with the web design work on the side and the shop full-time. My life was only lacking on the spiritual end. I knew the moment the Father chose me, that the circle was closed.
Lucida. Yeah. Lucida is probably one of the sexiest women I've ever seen in my life. Purely sexual. She's a completely sexual creature. It never stops. She's constantly exuding sensual prowess, if you will.
Well, eternity manifested itself to me when I was in Athens, Georgia. I'd been floundering around for most of my adult life trying to figure out how to bring eternity's message into the souls of humanity. I had concluded that music was the medium by which I would deliver the prophecy. However, I'd mistakenly determined New York City to be the Holy Land where I would locate my disciples. So I packed up and headed north. I stopped for a layover in Northern Virginia and was crashing into this little motel when I saw a listing for a local Dark Wave Wednesday at a club restaurant around the corner from the motel. And I always dug industrial music and goth music, so it sounded like it was my kind of scene, and I was going to check the place out. As I was entering the venue, I was struck by a moment of clarity during which I was informed that my disciples, with whom I would bring forth eternity's message, were at hand. I spoke briefly with the DJ, anointed Lucida and Victor, holed up in Northern Virginia, and we began working on our debut epistle.
Surprisingly, Victor and I had been attending the same Dark Wave Wednesday for quite some time. However, we didn't know one another. I mean, we had, of course, seen one another, but we had never spoken.
Oh, I knew who she was, but it's not exactly like Lucida's an easy woman to meet. Remember that night of Epiphany well? I imagine everyone in that club remembers that night well. The air just felt...
electric.
Yeah, different.
I mean, the Father walked from the DJ directly to me. He just walked straight through the crowd as if he knew exactly where and who I was.
Yeah, it was like the crowd literally parted.
Yeah, he just picked me, and then I walked at his side, straight to Victor.
Yeah, like I say, I was watching the whole thing happen. I think everyone there was watching it happen. He just walked straight over to Lucida, and then they both came walking over to me. That was the first time in my life everything really became clear. He just walked right over to me and said, "We're leaving now," and we left.
Yeah, the next morning we were riding together over coffee.
I keep telling you guys, I'm only a vessel.
Victor Axis was born Victor Jacob Hansen in 1972 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. His mother raised and schooled Victor and his siblings in a deeply religious and nurturing environment. The Hansen family spent one of Victor's more formative years in Venezuela, Ecuador, and the island of Trinidad, when his father was stationed there by the Tulsa-based oil drilling company for which he worked.
I spent one of my most memorable years as a child in South America. I remember when we were leaving, my parents purchased some Time Life set of rock and roll classics. They were actually afraid we wouldn't be able to find any American music in Venezuela. But actually, my parents were always very supportive. I was homeschooled, so there was never really any shortage of attention. And from the beginning, my family was always very musical.
However, Victor always felt the outcast and moved to New York City as soon as the opportunity presented itself.
I was in New York working at a goth shop, putting their catalog online for web-based ordering, and the whole web thing just fit me like a leather coat, you know. I was hanging out, actually living on IRC channels, made a lot of friends in the DC area, and actually had realized then that the computer field was really big there. So I went ahead and headed down to DC.
With only a high school education and no computer certifications, obtaining web design work was difficult at first, despite Victor's innate computer skills.
I had a hell of a time getting a job at first, and then amusingly enough, I met a guy who finally hired me at the same Dark Wave Wednesday where COC was formed. Actually, I was working as a web designer when our calling found us.
Victor? Victor's probably the coolest member. Victor's cool. He's just always cool. He's calm much of the time, but he can just sneer his point across. He's He's not mean, he's not antagonistic, he's just damn cool. Whereas you have this larger-than-life Nook and this constant sexual tension emanating from Lucida. With Victor, you've got a contentment that lures you into a sense of calm and trust, but at the same time is like a coiled spring with this artistic expression waiting to burst out.
Damn, this is irresponsible.
Good morning. I'm Terry Miller for NAC News. In our top story today, the public reacts to last Wednesday's tragic shooting in Fairfax. Local organizations are up in arms in response to the recent shooting of 4 junior high school students at a Fairfax rollover. The students were on a field trip sponsored by a local school. Several organizations have banded together and demanded that the manufacturers and distributors of rock and roll music, specifically the industrial, gothic, and EDM music genres, accept responsibility. Motion pictures, video games, and role-playing games were also mentioned in the protest. In a show of both force and solidarity, these organizations, comprised of more than a dozen local nonprofit groups, have successfully boycotted the sold-out performance of the Washington, D.C.-based industrial dance band, Church of Chaos. Promoters have canceled the performance and have stated that they will be refunding all ticket monies. A representative for the band stated that in contrast to statements made by the boycott's leaders, Church of Chaos is on a mission to save the souls of the world through vibe and groove.
Those got a gun. Those got a gun. Those got a gun. Those got a gun.
Father Nookie was born Anthony Nookiano in 1971 in Waterloo, Iowa. Anthony's mother was in the Navy and met his father, an assembly line worker, during a short port call. She moved on, leaving him to raise Anthony as a single father.
Well, I was born in Iowa and I lived there for much of my young life. My father was a factory worker. I never knew my mother. My father raised me with a strict atheist conscience. He was a truest of non-believers all the way. But I was approached by eternity at a very young age, provided with a message, a vibe and groove, and eternal purpose.
The soon-to-be Father Nookie wandered around the United States for much of his teenage years and early 20s, searching for the means by which he would deliver eternity's message.
It took me much of my maturing years to make sense of my gifts and then to determine how to fulfill my destiny, but it finally happened, and now I'm here to save the souls of the world.
He is what you see there. If you've seen the videos, if you've heard the music, you know exactly who he is and what he's about, and it's just like that all the time.
It's such a spiritual thing. As a matter of fact, I'm not even in the hot rods anymore. I've just devoted my time to this. And if you see the Father work and you see the people when they come in, they're in one state, and then you'll see them transcend. They'll be elated and they'll be in this euphoria. And he has a way of moving people, and he can move masses with this. It's like sermons, and I mean, I rate him up there with like great spiritual leaders like Billy Graham or Jim Jones, and you know, he's got that power. And actually, the shows are more of a revival anymore, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. I still live at home, and when I do go home, because I've been spending more time with Lucida and Victor than I do at home anymore, but I go home to get my laundry done. My mom, she's like concerned, you know, that I'm in some kind of cult or something. And people that don't really listen, they get these connotations about things. It's not like that at all. Like I said, it's very spiritual. And if you can move people, I think it's wonderful. And the Father has that ability.
Welcome, brethren. As I'm sure you all know, I am Father Nookie, and I shall enlighten you today with Psalms of Axis and soothe you with the samples of Gabriel. We've got salvation for sale. As the lovely Lucida makes the simplest of rounds, please be sure to deposit money for salvation, brethren, for the prophecy is at hand. Spread wide thy limbs and welcome Father Nookie into the depths of thine soul. And buckle up for the next life, for Church of Chaos is your vibe and groove salvation trip.
So we finished our first epistle and we were beginning to spread the word.
Yeah, well, we were using the internet as our primary medium.
Yeah, probably always will.
Anyway, so we reached the point where we had to look into performing our sermons live.
You gotta remember, we simply hold up and recorded our message after meeting. We didn't work with other messengers or anything, so the logistics of live performance weren't something we kept in mind.
Yeah, you have to realize we had layered samples and grooves together to obtain our sound, and at the time hadn't considered the technology of recreating this live on stage.
The first thing that most industrial bands do is add a human drummer to bring up the energy level on the stage.
Mm-hmm. Well, we followed suit. We hired our drummer, but the layered samples were just too much. He had a hell of a time. It didn't work out.
And besides, we had him wired to all of our MIDI and sampling gear like an electronic octopus, so it wasn't really working out.
I remember one night, Victor and the first drummer got into an argument over a loop that the drummer kept leading. Anyway, it came to blows.
Yeah, Victor finally kicked the faith out of it. How we got another drummer?
The second drummer had a much better grasp of technology, especially concerning sampling and sequencing, but he still had the same problems with all the layered grooves and the way we put it all together so chaotically.
Yeah. Hey, that's the time when we also brought in Dust, who, hell, I think you just found him somewhere one night or something.
Actually, we still had the second drummer when Ferry started.
I was playing guitar in this band called the Hot Rods, and we were like doing the animal circuit, you know, the moose, Elks Lodge, eagles, that kind of thing. And by a fluke, we got this call to play this place called the Venice Inn, and it's like really a ritzy establishment, so we jumped at the chance to play there. So we're doing this gig, and we're on our break, and of course I'm at the bar trying to make time with one of the barmaids because like this place, the chicks are really hot, you know, it's like some kind of hillbilly Hooters thing where they wear these skirts up to their navels. And anyway, in my peripheral vision, I see the Father walk into the bar. Well, He just walks straight up to the bar, slams his fist down on the bar and says, "Does anyone in this neon-encrusted whorehouse have a set of jumper cables?" Well, most people at the bar were taken back by it, but me, being a musician who spends more money on my guitar than I do my car, keeping that 73 Pinto on the road, I have jumper cables. So I looked at him and said, "I'll give you a jump." So we go out and I get his car jumped, and he says, "What are you doing in this putrid establishment?" And I said, "Well, actually I'm playing guitar in the band that's working there tonight." And he says, "It's a revelation, I'm in this band, Church of Chaos, and we're going to go live, and we need a guitarist to do this." And he gets in a case and pulls out a CD, and he scrawls this number in like eyebrow pencil or something on the back of it. And he says, "Call this number, get the rehearsal time." So I called the number, and I get this answering machine, so I leave all my information. And 2 days later, I get this call back from Blue, and Blue's the guy that produced the Church of Chaos album. And
I know it's been rumored on the internet in particular that I produced the record, but that's not true, actually. I mastered the record, but I didn't have anything to do with producing it.
He just gives me directions and tells me what time to be there, and says learn the album. So of course I had 2 days and I learned the album, at least all the guitar stuff. Subsequently I get some keyboard parts and things like that too. But anyway, I show up and the father introduced me to Lucida and Victor as the guitarist. And
anyways, it didn't take long for us to realize that we had plenty of energy on the stage just using our samples.
And that gave us more room for improv and altered arrangements.
So we fired the second drummer, our last drummer, and went with the current live lineup.
the next thing you know, we're playing, we're doing our shows.
We invited 30 of our closest disciples to join us for services at our primary house of worship, and we just tore up the ceremony.
Yeah, Keith directed and edited the whole thing, and it just rocks. It really shows the spiritual energy of the band live.
Yeah, plus it's the first video that features Dust that we've done.
Yeah, Barry was jamming that day, too. That song was a great choice for him to show up on.
I just hope you really enjoy the show tonight.
Is this it?
I think so. It's what the flyer said.
Oh, nowhere.
There's a sign on the door. What the hell is this? My God.
salvation. Buy your salvation.
I think I was just insulted. Well, we certainly haven't had any shortage of ideas. The Father is a conduit to eternity. I mean, vibe and groove flow through him constantly.
The essence of Church of Chaos is tangibility to salvation. I mean, it's love incarnate. This band will be together forever.
Now, I'm not really in the band. I mean, I'm a hired gun, but I really would like to be a part of it in the future.
Besides, we've already written most of our second epistle entitled Snow White and the Seven Deadly Sins.
Now, as I mentioned before, I came in and mastered the record, but it was done. They had already recorded it, they had already produced it, they had already arranged it. They were already disseminating their work across the internet to the world by the time I came into it. This band has a vision, and they know what they want to say, and they know what they want to do. And I think Church of Chaos will be around for a while. I don't think we've seen the last of the band.
We are, don't forget, interviewing people for a little go-go troupe.
Our dancers, yeah. Affectionately known as the Acolytes.
The Acolytes, yes.
My future? Well, like I said, I'd like to be a part of Church of Chaos. I mean, if they bring me in the fold, I'm there, I'm a follower.
Look, so long as the Father is in the world, the spirituality of COC shows will remain the singular salvation event for all humankind. I mean, look at him. He's vibe and he's groove.
I'm merely a vessel. And a vessel could not function without the disciples. We are spreading the word, the vibe, and the groove. So long as there are souls in need of salvation, Church of Chaos will be there with vibe and groove and salvation for Satan. Can I get a hallelujah, brethren? Hallelujah!
I've been working on a rock opera, and it's about a deaf, dumb, and blind kid that becomes like a Nintendo champ. And I'm just in the first segment of it where his father gets killed in the Gulf War, but it's like way too profound and too deep to go into right now. But
Go ahead, give it to me. All right.
I suck and stuff.
He was a Bernstein bear.
How did that come from?
We got through. Give me opportunity. We're gonna make you move. We got through. We got vibe. Give me opportunity. Make you feel like we got vibe. We got through. Give me opportunity. We'll make you feel like we got vibe. Give me opportunity. We'll make you feel like we got vibe. We got through. Give me opportunity. We're gonna make you move. We got through. We got vibe. Scream hallelujah for your salvation. 'Cause your chaos gonna make a barbaric nation.
Give me the opportunity, we'll make you feel alive. We got barbaric nation. We got groove. Hallelujah, boy. Give me the opportunity, we're gonna make you move. We got barbaric nation. We got vibe. Hallelujah, boy. Give me the opportunity, we'll make you feel alive. We got barbaric nation. We got groove. Hallelujah, boy. Give me the opportunity, we're gonna make you move. We got barbaric nation. We got vibe. Give me the opportunity, we'll make you feel alive. We got barbaric nation. We got groove. Hallelujah, boy. Give me the opportunity, we're gonna make you move. We got barbaric nation. We got vibe. Give me the opportunity, we'll make you feel alive. We got barbaric nation. We got groove. Give me the opportunity, we're gonna make you move. We got groove. We got vibe. Give me the opportunity, we'll make you.
That was fucking funny.
Shit, man.